We will, let's see, Senator, you have a bill, don't you? You might as well go ahead and do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, all of the members of the committee that are not here. For the record, State Senator Nick Schroer, 2nd District in St. Charles County, presenting Senate Bill 398. The original purpose of this bill was to encourage a conversation between the auto dealers and auto manufacturers to solve two major areas of dispute. First was how manufacturers and dealers resolve these spin-off issues, the spin-off companies that manufacture electric vehicles, and then ultimately who gets to sell those. The second issue was how to resolve disputes on reimbursement rates for warranty work. These conversations have been ongoing since the beginning of the year, and I think that we are going to have a good Senate committee substitute to address this. So in the new fixes to the new language, Section 407.812 addresses the electric vehicle spin-off brands, ensuring that current dealers would be allowed to sell these vehicles under the current agreements to the retail customers. For instance, if, let's say, Volkswagen invests in a startup company that is working on emerging technology for electric vehicles, and that company investment creates a product, bringing it to the market, the dealer would still have the right to sell that car under the current franchise agreements. In Section 407.828, this is a section requiring warranty service provisions pursuant to the manufacturer's warranty for each new vehicle sold, including vehicles sold by the servicing dealership. Currently, dealers are at the mercy of the franchisors or the manufacturers to provide dealers with fair compensation for the cost of their service, shop time, labor time, and the cost necessary to complete any warranty repairs. Due to the current shortage of skilled labor and rising costs, sometimes the compensation doesn't keep up with the current job and economic environment. There is a process to request an increase in the reimbursement rate, but it is cumbersome and is based primarily on what the manufacturer is paying other dealers in the area. The information is confidential, subject to antitrust concerns, and difficult to obtain without extensive discovery. The manufacturer, in that case, controls what it will pay to other dealers around the area, and in similar setup, it will pay dealers or pays dealers the rate that may not reflect the free market. So looking at this amended language to the committee subs on HB 894 and Senate Bill 398, we're proposing to modify this reasonable language standard for determination of fair compensation, better define that with a more direct approach, which has been adopted in other states. It simply inserts the free market into the equation by requiring manufacturers to reimburse their franchise dealerships for the cost of labor and parts used in warranty repairs at the same amount charged to customers for non-warranty repairs of the same type. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on the current bill or the proposed sub that we're going to have.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions, and as you can see, we don't have anybody else here. So we're going to start out with all those proponents of the bill testify first, and we'll go to opposition. So first witness up in favor of the bill. And I'll remind witnesses to leave a witness form, and you can leave written testimony as well if you're present, and that will go in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, for the record, my name is Doug Smith. I'm President and CEO of the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, and I would like to start off saying, yes, we are in support of this bill. I'd like to thank Senator Schroer for his help in introducing this bill. I'd like to give a little background on why we support this, if I could just have a little bit of time. As you know, the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, or you may not know, there's 385 franchise dealerships across the state. These are new car dealers. Everybody from Fiat to Bugatti has a dealership in the state of Missouri. 80% of those dealers are family-owned, Missouri family-owned dealerships. We're unique in that category, and the fact that most states don't have that kind of ownership makeup, in-state makeup, and in-state ownership. About 40% of our dealers have been in business for over 50 years. About 10% of them have been in business for 100 years. We've got 98 dealerships that are in county or in cities with 15,000 population or less. So we are truly a small business. So a third of our membership makes up small business in the state of Missouri. Basically, what we're seeking with passage of this bill, or what we'd like to see done with passage of this bill, is to allow for that multi-generational pattern of ownership change to continue. Many of our dealerships are multi-generational. The grandfather started the business, and it's succeeded each generation, and that's how we've ended up with these businesses being cornerstones of their communities. What this does is closes some vulnerabilities that we feel are in the current language. There has been discussion. Now, the manufacturers who are also represented here today will say that, and we believe them up to a certain point, that there has been discussion that electric vehicles require a different sales method. We don't agree with that. Our members have made significant investments in their communities, their businesses. They've spent millions of dollars over generations to solidify themselves in their communities. They've been good partners with their customers. They've been partners with their communities. They've been good partners with their employees. We want to see that continue. Basically, at the end of the day, what the manufacturer is creating is a new propulsion system. And propulsion systems have changed in vehicles for generations. You had the big block V8s in the 40s and 50s. You had the small block V8s in the 60s and early 70s. You had the oil embargo that happened in the early 70s, and they changed to the V4, the V6. Now you've got hybrids. Now you've got larger power plants that are still V8s that are half the size of what they were in the 50s and 60s. That is really all an electric vehicle is. It's a change in the propulsion system. The best way to sell this vehicle, we feel, is through the dealership network. It has changed a lot over the last 10 years. Really had one electric vehicle player in the industry about 10 years ago, and that was Tesla. We have had multiple discussions, as the senator said, with the manufacturers, and we've included Tesla in those discussions. This bill in no means would affect Tesla's business model, and we've worked very hard to give them assurances that we're not seeking to drive them out of business. They are the largest seller of electric vehicles in the world, but now you have more choices. You have close to 40 or 50 choices across all lines, and that's growing. That's growing every month, and we feel that the best way to market this, sell this, educate the consumers, and repair the vehicles is through the dealer network that's been around for over a century. We think this is fair to the small business people in Missouri. We think this is fair to dealers to allow them to grow their businesses, continue to drive the roots that they have in their communities, and also take care of their customers and their employees. So we would like to go on record of supporting this. The technician piece, we've modified. We've had multiple discussions with the senator and the manufacturers, and we think we're at a point where it's fair. Right now, if a technician, I'll just give you an example. If a technician works on a transmission that's a warranty repair, the technician will do that work, and let's say it takes them 12 hours. Well, the manufacturer will come back and say, well, we think that job, based on our studies and our engineering, that job should only take you 8 hours. So the technician is not paid for that 4 hours of labor. So this will modify the process and make it simpler to address concerns from the dealer to the manufacturer. The appeals process that we have now is cumbersome. It's not easy to use. It requires attorneys and other issues, and it really, we feel, is slanted towards the manufacturer more than it is the small business person. So we think we've got a good solution for that as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Sorry if I rambled.
All right, thank you. I couldn't agree more with your testimony. I'm going to pause here real quick, and we'll go ahead and, I think we have a quorum, don't we? Ashley, please call the roll.
Senator Brown. Here. Senator Moon. Senator Gannon. Here. Senator Koenig. Here. Senator McCreary. Senator Razor. Senator Schroer. Here. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Is there any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness in favor of the bill, please step forward. Yeah, make sure you leave witness. Were there any other witnesses testify in favor of the bill? All right. Witnesses to testify in opposition of the bill, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mark Rhodes. I'm here representing a new entrant, Scout Motors, Inc. I'm late to the game, and for that, Senator Schroer, I apologize. We did want to, I want to tell you a little bit about Scout Motors today and a little bit about what troubles us with the bill as written, and I don't think it's addressed completely in the substitute. We just received the substitute yesterday, so we are looking at it, and obviously I want to work with the sponsor. I want to work with MATA. I gave them a heads up yesterday that I would be testifying in opposition. Let me briefly, I'm handicapped. I was going to borrow Doug's glasses. Let me briefly tell you about Scout Motors. It's an iconic American brand formerly manufactured by International Harvester, last sold in the United States more than 4 decades ago. It's a United States-based manufacturer with an American red, white, and blue brand. They're re-imaging and electrifying the Scout brand and intend to manufacture the next generation electric truck and rugged SUV under the Scout brand. Scout Motors is an independent U.S. company that was officially incorporated in Delaware in May of 22. The ultimate parent company of Scout Motors is Volkswagen AG. Scout Motors is planning to produce its Scout brand electric vehicles at a new $2 billion facility in South Carolina. It's expected that production will start in 2006 and that the ultimate product would be available starting in 2007. We have no dealers. Scout has no dealers. At this point in time, Scout has no product. No dealers presently sell the Scout brand, obviously it being not manufactured for 4 decades. The Scout EV models are being developed from the ground up, and we do not wish to be frozen out of the Missouri EV market. As a new company with an American brand, Scout Motors would like to preserve and is asking to preserve its right to use any model of sales to consumers to meet consumer demand while enhancing the economic viability of the company. Scout has not made any decisions regarding how products may be offered to the public, but again wants to preserve available options. You know, in this building, senators, we talk about free market, we talk about providing free and fair competition, we talk about protecting marketplace competition on behalf of consumers. And I think I think at times we, the lobby industry, ask you all to pick winners and losers, and in some way I think that that's what this bill is doing. I don't know that it's fair to you. I would also say that nearly half of the states currently permit the sale of motor vehicles via both franchised automobile dealers and, where no franchisee relationship exists, direct manufacturer sales to consumers. So this is not an unusual issue to have debated before the General Assembly. This regulatory posture permits the operation of the free market, provides beneficial competitive pressures while protecting the balance sought in the existing franchisee relationships. I want to make it very clear that we support current law. We have no desire to do damage to the current 407 statutes. We simply feel like we are falling in a separate category, not unlike Tesla. I don't know ultimately in 3 years what the corporate structure is going to be. It's beyond my pay grade. But again, we want to preserve the option to sell direct. Let me wrap up. Senate Bill 398 is likely to apply to manufacturers of line makes without franchisees. It is unclear how the new restrictions further protect franchisor and franchisee relationships. You know, who could have predicted that 3 years ago that the market would have changed so dramatically due to the pandemic, due to supply chain interruptions, which exist again today. Who can predict 3-4 years from now what the market is going to look like? And again, we're asking you to consider preserving our options with regard to the sale of EV vehicles. Thank you, Senators.
All right. I got a question because I'm a little confused. You might be able to clear this up. So when you were talking about, did you say Scout is now associated or affiliated with Volkswagen?
Volkswagen is a current investor in the new startup company. They are the
So-
parent. They are the parent company, Senator.
How could they be treated like a startup then? I don't understand. I mean, Volkswagen's been around since what, the 60s?
I think, and this is something that I need to get back to you on. But
Yeah.
I think it involves a restructuring that they're contemplating taking place before they actually go into production. And so I need to clarify that for you all. I understand that that's an issue.
I mean, I think it's great they're bringing back the Scout. I hope it looks, like the old ones and all that. But I just can't see how we could consider Scout as a startup company. I mean, the brand's even the Scout brand alone has been around for decades. I mean,
It
my
has
grandfather,
Yeah.
Diedrich, had several of them back from the 60s and early 70s. But being affiliated with Volkswagen, I'm a little leery about that.
Let me clarify that for you. I'm new to this game, and I need to get back to the corporation and get you an answer.
Okay. Any other questions for the witness? All right. Seeing none. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Are there any other witnesses to testify in opposition?
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate, and I'm totally opposed to this Bill 398. I believe, like the last speaker, in the free and open market, and I think that if anyone wants to come to Missouri and open up a dealership or a franchise, that they should be able to. That's what our country was built upon. That's what Missouri was built upon. It's our foundation, and our economic balance is to do the American dream and to open up franchises and car dealerships as people see fit, if they have the money and the capital to do so. There's an emergency car industry in Missouri in all 50 states. Carvana is one of them, where you can order a car online and it gets delivered to your home and they pick up your used car and the whole transaction is done electronically on the computer and the loan closing is done on the computer and you sign for the car and that's the end of that. All the Missouri applicable sales tax are paid to the state, into the local municipality that you live in, or if it's unincorporated county, it goes to pay those taxes there. For those reasons, I'm opposed to SB 398.
Any questions for a witness? Hearing none. Are there any other witnesses testify in opposition to the bill? For informational purposes only.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jewel Paddock on behalf of the Alliance of Automotive Innovators. We appreciate the fact that both the sponsor of the bill and the Missouri Auto Dealers Association have worked with us on this substitute. We're still reviewing it, but in the spirit of the discussions we've had, we believe we've reached a good compromise. Let me just begin, though, to say that the bill as filed, particularly related to the time guide issue as it relates to warranty work, was fairly egregious. It was modeled after a bill that had passed Illinois, which is usually an indication of how bad it can be. That bill passed a couple years ago in an election year and had all the right political alignment and really shifted the cost of warranty work a burden unfairly onto the manufacturers in the tune of, if the bill were to pass in Missouri, over $100 million in additional costs. As to how we pay for the warranty work, and I like Mr. Smith, but he did seem to indicate a fact that's not accurate. When a trained technician, which is the only person's allowed in one of the dealers in the state, does warranty work, they've been trained to meet the standard. So if it's supposed to be 8 hours, they've been trained and they've been certified they can do it in 8 hours. Of course, sometimes it does take more than 8 hours. So most of the time it actually takes less. And guess what? The dealer doesn't send us any money back every time they do a transmission, and they got paid for 10 hours and it only took 8. We don't get 2 hours back. And so in the bulk of the transactions, the dealer actually makes a nice profit from warranty work. On the times when it might take more, there is a process, and in all fairness, maybe it's not as good as it could be. I mean, each obviously the bill's filed, so there must be some issue, and we've tried to reach an agreement here. But in every instance, the technician always gets paid. So I think Mr. Smith indicated that the technician worked 12 hours, we only paid 8. Well, the dealer got paid, say, $200 an hour for that work. The technician gets paid 60 to 80 hours. The technician's going to get paid whatever hours the technician worked. The dealer's extra, if you will, the profit may be reduced, but in every instance, the technician gets paid because the technician gets paid by the dealer, not by us. So I just want to make clear that even if it does go over and there's not a method for compensation worked out, that the technician, the worker, the ones actually performing the work always gets paid. So I just want to clarify that issue. We appreciate them working with us. We're happy we've come to an agreement. On the other issue related to the franchise agreements themselves, we support our dealers. We've got a great relationship in Missouri. Working together, I think the automotive industry is better off than it's ever been. The future is bright, both for the dealers as well as for the manufacturers, so we can hope to continue to have that relationship going forward. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any question for the witness? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Any other witnesses to testify in informational purposes only? All right. Senator Schroer, you have any closing comments? All right. Next up, Senator Crawford, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Sandy Crawford, District 28. Thank you so much for hearing Senate Bill 366 today, and I will be going off the substitute. Well, first of all, I want to say it seems like I've become the senator of fee increasers for this session, and I think at some point I said no more, but if you can imagine yourself being subjected to being a business that you have no control over what the income is, with skyrocketing wages and costs of everything, and you're depending on us to help you with that, I think that's a good thing to keep in mind whenever we look at things like this. So Senate Bill 366 makes 3 changes to the current administration of contractor fee offices in the state. It will increase the fee from $6 to $9 for motor vehicle and trailer registration, titles, driver's license, permits, etc. If you'll recall, about 4 years ago, we did the first raise to the fee offices since 1999. It had been 20 years since those fees had raised. I don't think anybody thought we'd be back here in 2023, but if you look at the minimum wage, if you look at cost of rents, things have skyrocketed over the past few years, and I think that a case can be made that it is logical that we can do this. Another thing that the bill does is it includes a provision that will prohibit current or former employees of the Department of Revenue for a period of 2 years from owning or serving on the board of an entity that's awarded a license office. Why? And that was my question. Why do we need to do this? Well, if you think it through, much like we can't be a lobbyist for 2 years, many times your former employees of the Department of Revenue, they have insider information. They have friends that are on the boards that decide on who these license offices are, and it kind of gives them, in my opinion, an unfair advantage whenever it comes to bidding on the license offices. And the last thing it does is it includes a provision that will set up a fund in the state treasurer's office that will be called the License Office Distribution Fund. This will include a $1 fee. $1 of the new fee, will be deposited in this fund. It will be distributed to all the license offices equally across the state. Why do we need to do this? We have, both in the urban and rural areas, low volume offices, and so this will help to supplement them, if you will. I personally live in a small town. I would much rather pay an extra fee, a slightly extra fee, to get my license licenses than I would to drive 45 minutes to Springfield, which is what I would be looking at. So I think in order to serve the constituents that we represent, this is a big help. And while I'm not a big fee increaser either, I think sometimes it just makes sense to do it, and that's what Senate Bill 366 does. I'm happy to answer questions, but I believe we have some people behind me that are experts. Matter of fact, they run some of the fee offices, and they could tell you firsthand why they need this bill, but I'm happy to answer questions if I can.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Senator Crawford? All right, seeing none, first witness, please come forward in favor of the bill.
Yes, good morning. My name is Steve Tennant. I'm from Plattsburgh. I'm also representing the MALO, the Missouri Association of License Offices, and I want to recognize Senator Crawford and appreciate her coming and stuff. I know she had the passing of her father, so I do appreciate her making the extra effort, and I appreciate you guys being here as well and stuff in your service. The bill is very vital to us, and one of the things that is really critical for us to bring forth is there's a new relationship that has developed between the Department of Revenue and our license offices. Previously, before Director Wallenford took over, it was an adversarial situation. It was not, now we've become almost like partners. We've got business and government working together. This fee increase is going to help us maintain these real offices. We don't have high volume. We need this in order, because our wages have gone up significantly. And I know that right now and stuff, it's hard for people to come to work and apply for jobs at any price that you put on it. License office is a specific thing, and it's a difficult, circumstance to do. But we have been blessed with that. But we need more money to make sure that we can continue to get the proper applicants and stuff to continue to serve our local governments. Plattsburgh's the county seat of Clinton County, so we are blessed in that regard, but we are rural in that regard. One of the things that I think also needs to be brought up is there's a neighboring office in Savannah, Missouri, that the lady that ran that office for 10 years had been coming from Mound City. She's the type of person that you want to be in these offices, and she cared about her. That she retired, and when she retired, no one took over that office. No one had bid it. I went up to look at trying to bid that office, but couldn't make it work and stuff. That office is still closed. Those people that are in that community and stuff, Savannah is also the county seat of Andrew County. So again, you're losing, that local, service for people. So I can't stress enough that we need your support, and we also want you to understand that we need it so we can be viable and continue. Again, I brought up the Department of Revenue. There is ways that they're shifting the burden from the government to these local offices, and so we want to be a player to do that. And in order to do that, we need to be able to have the right people and stuff, because they want to have less people doing for the state of Missouri. They're going to let private industry do that. And I think some people have thought that maybe you can privatize offices. Hasn't been a good thing. It's been a wonderful thing. In the years that I got into it years ago, the St. Joe had 12 people working in their state office, okay? When it was privatized, it went down to 6 people that were working that office. We're more efficient. We care about doing the job better than that, and so we're very happy with the fact that we have that relationship between the Department of Revenue and us as a business. I'm happy to, if you have questions for me, but I just appreciate your support and obviously appreciate your service.
Hi, Senators. My name is Morgan Barker. I live in Nevada, Missouri, but I own C. Barker, LLC with my husband, Cody, and my business partner, Paul Schmidt Sr. Paul Schmidt has a few offices of his own, and him and I together recently got the Harrisonville license office. So I actually wake up every morning in my house in Nevada, Missouri, get myself and my 3 kids ready, and drive an hour north to my office in Harrisonville. I run and operate my office. I think it is very vital for agents to be in their offices, see the day-to-day aspects of it, and not be an absent agent. However, with these, even if you are in your office, like I am every day, you know, your rent's going up. My rent alone at my office is going to go up $1,200 per year for the length of my my lease. My toner cartridges for my printers are $200 to $300 a piece, and in my office we have 3 of those printers. And as you imagine, we probably print a lot of paper, so we use a lot of ink and toner cartridge every single day. Like I said, I live in Nevada. My business partner has the office in Nevada. I became his office manager back when he opened the office in 2020, November of 2020. And the office just south of us in Lamar, I'm really good friends with that agent as well. The office east of us in Stockton, I know her as well. Those 2 offices, I do not believe will be able to sustain in the next few years. I think Nevada would still be able to sustain. I think we have a lot of business still that would be able to help us. But the littler offices in the areas, they're going to go under. They're not going to be able to afford good employees. It's hard enough getting employees in the door as it is right now. I will put a job ad out. I'll get 40 applications in. I'll call pretty much all 40 of them because I know chances are probably only 2 or 3 of them are going to show up. So these smaller offices aren't going to be able to sustain to keep employees, keep a good manager, to ensure that the license offices are running good, to make sure that these individuals in these counties, towns, communities have a good office to go to. In Harrisonville, prior to mine, I'm not going to speak ill of any other agent or staff member, but we have customers every day telling us that they would drive 30 to 40 minutes outside of their or out of their way to not go to Harrisonville because it was so bad. Because I don't know if they just didn't have the funds to get good employees. I want to be able to pay my employees what they're worth. I want to be able to pay my employees a livable wage so that they like their job. They can come to their job, they like what they do, and they can help the customers how I want them to be helped and how they should be helped. So that they can also be able to sustain a life outside of their job. Another part in this bill is the Department of Revenue employees having to take a 2-year break from being able to bid on any offices. We also do think that that is very important. I do want to be clear on that. That will not affect any if my employee wanted to go and bid on an office. My employee could go and bid on an office next year if they wanted to, because they are not an employee of Department of Revenue. They are an employee of C.M. Barker, LLC. But Department of Revenue employees, they have firsthand knowledge and information as to why the RFP is set up the way it is. They have firsthand knowledge and information to managers' transaction counts, their inventory control, and in these current RFPs, that is a very big and vital piece of it. So I think that is all I have. If you guys have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer anything. Thank you. Yes, I did.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Joseph Plagenberg. I am a born and raised Missourian, lived here virtually all my life, grew up in Warren County, Missouri. Went to school here at the University of Missouri, got out, got a law degree, wanted to join the student loan forgiveness program, started up with the state, inevitably worked with the state for about 11 plus years. 8 of those years were spent with the Department of Revenue. Started out there as division counsel for the Motor Vehicle and Driver Licensing Division, and was gradually afforded a number of promotions over that time to the administrator of the Driver License Bureau, then to honored to be the director of the Motor Vehicle and Driver Licensing Division, served as general counsel, was briefly the interim director of Revenue, and then served as the general counsel again under Director Wallingford. I joined the government in order to take advantage of the student loan forgiveness program, and I'd always joked with my friends and family that once the 10 years was done, all bets were off, I'd tell people. And why was that? Because my long-term goal was to be able to establish a couple of private businesses. One, since I was in middle school, was to become my own attorney, hanging my own shingle and becoming just a small practitioner in a town. Inevitably, it wound up being Jefferson City. During my time with the Department of Revenue, another goal emerged, and that was to, frankly, try to run some license offices more efficiently and better than what I had observed during my time at the Department of Revenue. And so, sure enough, when I left last July, I did two things. One, I started up a business, Plagenberg Law LC, and started up my solo practice. The second thing I did was found a partner who has spent decades working in license office operations, and I started up a second business called P&H Management LC. What I see in this bill, the concerns that I have in this bill are twofold. One, obviously, I have a stake in whether or not Department of Revenue employees are prohibited from being able to bid on license office contracts for 2 years. A couple of points that I want to make on that. One, this is a competitive bidding process. All of the bidding documents are public. Anybody in the public is typically able to bid on these. What they're talking about with insider dealing or things like that, conflicts of interest, there are already laws on the books that prevent those kinds of things and actually make them criminal. You know, that's corruption. That's public servant corruption at the end of the day. And if they want to make those allegations, that's great. I would ask to see the fire and the smoke and see the allegations that actually make that real. The second thing I would say is this is surgical in that it's only related to Department of Revenue employees. If the General Assembly were truly concerned about competitive bidding with state employees, maybe you need to consider all state employees being prohibited for 2 years from bidding on any related contracts. That would seem to be more equitable and fair if the true concern is that state employees tend to have some insider knowledge. The third point that I'd want to make on this is simply that there is a small niche of folks in the License Office Bureau itself within that division that actually know any of the information that was suggested by the proponents of the bill. The far majority of folks that are in the Division of Taxation, that are in other aspects of the Motor Vehicle and Driver Licensing Division, they don't keep track of inventory controls, and they don't keep track of the number of transactions processed. The folks that actually do have that knowledge intimately are the current contractors. They know how many transactions have been processed in their offices. The contractors that run a dozen or more of these offices know how many transactions have been processed by individuals across all of those. I think that there is at least an argument to be made that Department of Revenue folks are on equal footing as the current contractors that are competitively bidding on these. At the end of the day, that provision, I just want to say, is anti-competitive. And there's been a lot of talk with the prior bill about the importance of fair and free competition in Missouri and across the country, and that's what I would say about that. The other major aspect of this is the fee increases, obviously. And I'll be the first one to say that with the inflation increasing and market adjustments being made, I would totally agree and support an increase for the license offices across the state. I do think that's important. I do think they need to be able to get some kind of increase. This is a 50% increase. 50% increase, you know, and I'm a data-driven decision-making kind of guy. 50% is a really round number, and I just haven't seen anything that sort of tethers 50% of a fee increase to the CPI or to market adjustments that are necessary for toner or paper or whatever like that. Totally think it would be appropriate. I think that there should be some sort of demonstration of why 50% is the magic number and not 8.7 like the state workers just got, or some other market adjustment for reasonably related to the costs of doing business. The last thing I want to talk about is the distribution fund, and there were some concerns brought up about rural license offices. I have no doubt that some of those offices are very difficult to bid because of the low volume of transactions that are processed. The two problems that I see with the current distribution fund language, number one, I firmly believe that it violates Article 4, Section 30B of the Missouri Constitution, which requires that most of these funds that are collected for you to get your driver license or license plates be distributed to the highway fund. In the House bill hearing that occurred last week on the exact identical language, the Department of Revenue responded that the basis for this and the argument against that it violates the Constitution was that it's similar to the dealer administrative fee that's collected by dealers, a portion of which is remitted to the state treasurer for purposes of modernization. The difference there is simply the events. So with the dealer administrative fee, the relevant event is actually the dealer selling a vehicle to a buyer out there. It's a sale. It's a sale from a private entity to a private individual. Here you have a fee that is collected by a contractor for the state of Missouri, and it is remitted to the state of Missouri. And if you read the language in Article 4, Section 30B, it strongly suggests that that money should go actually to the highway fund. And I think everybody here at least has some understanding that MoDOT's not willing to fight for money and litigate even against its sister agencies when it suits them to do so. The only other example I'd give on that is simply that when the Department of Revenue collects these processing fees today, they remit those processing fees to the state highway fund. I think there's a real concern that it violates the Missouri Constitution. Finally, the last thing I want to bring up is that this is essentially a redistribution of wealth scheme. So every single contracted license office collects $1 and sends it into this fund as a policy. So the fund then fills up, and then on 4 distributions every year, everybody gets an equal chunk of the money, right? I provided you all with a one-pager on this, and in that one-pager there is an example of actually the Ellington License Office based upon FY22 data of their transaction volumes. In FY22, Ellington License Office collected $42,798 in fees. If you take this proposal with this distribution fund and apply it to what they did in FY22, they would essentially pay $6,961 into the fund, and then they would be distributed around $51,000 back out. So they did $42,798 worth of work and then get free money for nothing, in the amount of about $51,000, more than they even did for the work performed. And that comes from the bigger offices that are doing the work, remitting that extra dollar to them. That as a mechanism is simply concerning to me. One alternative might be that maybe there is a fee structure created in 136.055 that allows for offices that process fewer than 15,000 transactions to get X amount more dollars, so that you're not giving a windfall to these large offices that are already doing very well for themselves, but you're also continuing to support those more local communities. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Testify in opposition to the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate, and I'm opposed to SB 366. I agree with one portion of the bill that these fee office agents, they used to be favors of the governor for people who contributed to his campaign. Now they're a part of where you bid on them, and so I'm thankful for that part. But for the former employees, I think a 2-year waiting period is just and proper. I think it's about ethics. I think that this part of the bill should be amended to apply to all state employees and elected and appointed officials at the state, county, and local level, because I think that they should also sit out a 2-year waiting period for ethics and that type of thing. I'm opposed to the $1 fee increase, and I look at it as a tax. It's for a distribution fund, and the previous speaker said it's a free gift. So smaller offices that don't work as hard and put out the effort and the time and the constraints, they're going to get rewarded no matter what. And that's just not fair in Missouri society. So I'm definitely opposed to this $1 fee increase. It's an unfair mandate on the backs of Missourians to pay yet another fee for we don't exactly know exactly how it's going to be used. And I just totally disagree with that part of the bill. I'm also opposed to the $3 increase of fees. And the bill sponsor said it's going from $6 to $9, but down in the actual legislation in the weeds, it says that it's going from $9 to $18. So that's a doubling of the fee. Enough is enough. Enough is enough for Missourians. This fee, again, is a tax increase. It's an unfair mandate, and I have not seen any evidence that substantiate an increase in these fees. These fee offices are being operated under the backs of Missourians, and it just isn't just. On lines 12 through 15 on page 1 of the legislation, the fees are actually doubling from $9 to $18. And as a previous speaker said, it's a 50% increase, and it's unfair to Missourians, not to mention violation of the Missouri State Constitution, the Hancock Amendment. So in actuality, is it a $4 increase or is it a $5 increase for a 2-year tab on your automobile or your trailer or your truck? Why don't you as committee members put the fee increase up for a vote of the people? There could be a realistic court challenge in this case because of what I interpret to be a violation of the Missouri Hancock Law of the state constitution. And why not put this up for a vote of the people, either yes or no? I think that's the fair and adequate remedy for this situation. That's my testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions for witness? Senator Razor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Arnie, I agree with you on the fact that this is essentially tax with a different name.
Sure.
But I do want to address the past two witnesses have talked about the small rural offices getting money back. It's not that they're not working harder. It's an issue of population.
Sure.
And I don't want the senator to have to drive 45 minutes to go take care of this business. My family lives in rural Missouri, and you have to keep these open. And part of the fact of life, and I don't mean to offend anybody in rural Missouri, those of us in the city are going to subsidize it.
Sure.
And we do because we like to eat. And these are the folks that make our food and the cotton that we wear. So I have no problem with the fact that we do that. So.
What about increasing online buying your tabs through the Department of Revenue electronically?
I have to think about that one. But we've got to keep those offices open for Missourians that live there.
Convenience.
Yeah, and I can address that. I mean, I represent, all 7 of my counties are rural, and I have some extremely rural areas where you'd have a situation where you would literally have somebody driving an hour one way. And the online portion is great for like our generation, but we have a population that has never been on the internet. So, it's a tough deal, but it's real. But any other questions for the witness? All right, seeing none. Any other witnesses to testify in opposition to the bill? Informational purposes only. All right, seeing none. Senator, do you have any closing comments?
Just one, the $18 fee is a 2-year license, so that's not, it's just equitable. So, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right. I'm going to hand the gavel over to Senator Koenig, if you don't mind. We always save the best for last, and I'm going to present my bill, 355. All right, good morning, members of the committee. Justin Brown for the record, Senator for the 16th District. Senate Bill 355 requires lighters to meet American Society for Testing Materials standards and bans counterfeit and novelty lighters. So, in short, in the 1970s, these standards were established, and currently American companies that manufacture lighters follow these rules and regulations. The whole point of this bill is, like many of the lighters that we import, from different countries, mostly Asian countries, they're cheap knockoff of U.S. brands, and I mean I've been known to partake in some Marlboros in this building, and I can tell you there's a big difference between an American-made lighter that costs $2 and an 89-cent lighter that's imported here. It's an unsafe market for Missouri consumers, and this just gets that in line to where they would have to meet those standards. and ban some of these novelty lighters. I believe I have an expert sitting behind me that could answer a lot of these questions. If I'm not mistaken, he may even be board certified lighter expert. So I would be happy to take any questions, but I would refer most of those to him. Thank you.
Questions for the bill sponsor? Seeing none, first witness testifying in support of Senate Bill 355.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for your time today. My name is Beth Seals, and I'm here on behalf of Zippo Manufacturing Company and the U.S. Lighter Association. I was born and raised in St. Charles County, and I'm soon moving back here. Thank you to Senator Brown for supporting this bill. I've been General Counsel and Corporate Secretary to Zippo since 2016. I'm also Vice President, and I serve on the Board of Directors of the U.S. Lighter Association, whose biggest members are Zippo and BIC, along with other U.S. lighter companies. I'm also a member of the ASTM Safety Standard Organization's Working Group for Lighters. Zippo is most famous for its iconic windproof lighter, and we have a long and proud history of U.S. manufacturing. All of our windproof lighters that are sold globally are made right here in the U.S. Zippo's lighters have been featured in more than 2,000 Hollywood films. You might have seen some like The Godfather, Die Hard, Indiana Jones, and we love to see our lighters portrayed that way. Where we don't love to see our lighter brand portrayed, or copycatted, if you will, is in counterfeit and unsafe lighters. For many years, unsafe, counterfeit, and novelty lighters have been sold to Missouri consumers. Sometimes consumers are attempting to purchase, thank you, a genuine Zippo lighter just to be fooled by cheap knockoffs that are often imported from Asia. This bill will ensure that lighters sold in Missouri meet safety standards that have been well established for many years, respect intellectual property rights, and don't mimic toys that can confuse parents and injure children. As Senator Brown mentioned, currently ASTM lighter safety standards are voluntary. And while U.S. companies do meet these voluntary standards, there's no federal law that requires them to be mandatory. Although we are starting to see laws enacted that incorporate the safety standards in some other industries to address safety issues, like in the toy industry, fuel cans, furniture to prevent tip-overs. We are seeing in the marketplace that the cheap knockoff lighters that are imported from Asia usually are sold by manufacturers that do not follow the safety standards, and that just creates an unsafe marketplace. This bill would require the standards to be mandatory and would give a private right of action to concerned companies and consumers against violators. This bill is not about eliminating competition or increasing the market share for any lighter company for Zippo. Zippo has a loyal fan base. We sell semi-luxury lighters. People that purchase novelty lighters, these aren't the competition. These aren't going to affect the market share of Zippo. This bill is purely about lighter safety, keeping the market clear of unsafe lighters and counterfeit and novelty lighters, and providing consumers with the opportunity to purchase only safe lighters. Zippo and the Lighter Association have supported other legislation that would also ban unsafe and novelty lighters in more than a dozen states, including some neighboring states like Illinois, Nebraska, and Arkansas. Zippo also brings enforcement actions against Chinese resellers who manufacture and sell counterfeit products. We've done so in the International Trade Commission and in state courts. We've won these lawsuits, and we also work with U.S. Customs to reduce the importation of counterfeit and unsafe lighters. To close up, this bill would give additional resources beyond what I just mentioned to consumers and companies by requiring manufacturers to respect intellectual property rights and to follow long-established safety standards to ensure safety in the market. And when they don't, government officials, fire officials, concerned companies and consumers, they can bring a case against those who who cause violations. Thanks for supporting this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for this witness? Senator McCreary.
Thanks for being here. So one of the things I was surprised to learn is that the safety standards are voluntary. So are we in a situation where, like, we need everybody that's selling things in this country, or at least in Missouri, to be following those voluntary standards so that the government doesn't have to mandate things? Is that kind of a situation that we're in?
Well, I would say that the U.S. companies already follow these standards, and many of our customers who sell lighters in the U.S. require, in order to sell it, for us to follow these safety standards. But there's no federal law that requires it, so U.S. Customs does not check to see this when lighters are imported. So it ends up that lighters are being imported that don't follow the standards. And it causes an unsafe condition in the marketplace. It's not good for anyone in the market or for the lighter industry for there to be unsafe lighters that could cause fires.
It seems like just shipping them from overseas could be a hazard just for the people dealing with shipping even. So
Yeah.
Is there also federal legislation addressing this?
There's not federal legislation right now that
So
requires.
you're doing it state by state?
We have seen a couple states do this, and that's what we're trying to do here. We would love to see federal legislation govern this as well, and there has been in other industries to address safety issues in other products, but not yet for lighters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in support, Senate Bill 355?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate, and this is a great bill. It's common sense. It makes sense to protect our children of our state and even some adults. I want to see this bill pass and get on the governor's desk for a signature. It cuts down on fake knockoff lighters, and there are some safety concerns here. And this bill really addresses Missouri consumer protections. It protects all Missourians in terms of safety. A lot of these knockoff foreign lighters don't have the safety switches or safety mechanisms to make people safe. So I also would like to see this committee mandate safety regulations that foreign lighters must meet the same voluntary mandate that American lighters do. And that's my testimony.
Anybody else testify in support of Senate Bill 355? Anybody else testify? Anybody else in opposition to Senate Bill 355?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Ron Leone. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri Petroleum and Convenience Association. And for the record, that means I represent many of your constituents who own and operate gas stations, convenience stores, and truck stops. I am here appearing reluctantly in opposition to Senate Bill 355. We appear in opposition for two primary reasons, which will kind of dovetail with some of the questions that have been asked of the witnesses thus far. The first reason we oppose Senate Bill 355 is because the three issues addressed by Senate Bill 355, which is counterfeit lighters, novelty lighters, and unsafe lighters, should be addressed at the federal level by Congress, so that all 50 states are playing by the same rules and that Missouri retailers aren't an island in the middle of the country and certainly at a competitive disadvantage with our 8 border states. That certainly should happen, of course, in Washington, D.C. by Congress, and especially a couple of the issues are very much federal issues. Counterfeit lighters are intellectual property based. That is absolutely more of a federal issue than a state issue and therefore should be addressed by Congress. The unsafe lighters that this bill purports to address should of course be addressed nationally so that everybody is playing by the same rules. I find it a little bit interesting too that the bill itself, if it passed, at the end of it, would still allow these unsafe, counterfeit, and novelty lighters to be transported through our state and stored in our state. but not sold in our state. So again, this should be done at the federal level through Congress. The second reason we think this bill, or we oppose this bill, with all due respect to the proponent, the witness that testified in favor, this is absolutely about picking market winners and pick market winners and losers. Zippo does not sell any novelty lighters. If you remove novelty lighters from the marketplace, they're going to sell more Zippo lighters, because if we assume the demand for lighters is static and we assume the supply has been decreased as a result of the elimination of novelty lighters, they're obviously going to sell more Zippo lighters. And we know that's not good policy. We hear that all the time in various committees, that the legislature shouldn't be picking winners and losers. So I want to state, lastly, for the record, obviously we're not in favor of counterfeit lighters. We're not in favor of unsafe lighters, but we do think this issue needs to be addressed by Congress so that everybody is playing by the same rules. And I have members that not only are located and market in Missouri, but they work within our 8 border states. So in one location they could sell these, and in another location they couldn't. This needs to be addressed uniformly and nationally. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition to Senate Bill 355?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is David Overfelt. I'm the president of the Missouri Retailers Association and a lobbyist for the Missouri Grocers Association. I look at this bill, there's some things that concern me. One, I see no reason why novelty lighters need to be banned. I have bought a number of those lighters over the years. Yes, they don't usually last very long, but there are a lot of collectors out there, a lot of people, there's farm animals, all kinds of things. I smoke a pipe. A lot of our pipes are carved out of meerschaum, and they are all kinds of different characterizations. Frankly, I don't think that should be done. I wonder about what is counterfeit, if that goes a little further than it should. I'm very concerned about civil lawsuits, because in the city of St. Louis, my members are starting to get sued by individuals for issues that used to only pertain to the Attorney General and merchandising practices fraud. So we have a number of issues there. I understand safety. I will admit I've always been a firebug, but I always kind of liked the magnifying glasses, but we did all kinds of things. I'm terrible with these Zippos, but I got 100 of them. Because I do smoke a pipe, and my problem is every time I fill it up, I always overfill it, and the whole thing kind of blows up if I don't let it sit for an hour. And, so, I mean, it's a flame's a flame, but there are some ignitions, and I understand some good standards, and I'd never give up my Zippos.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, anybody else testify in opposition to Senate Bill 355? Anybody testify for informational purposes only? All right, that concludes our hearing on Senate Bill 355.
All right, there's no other business come for the meeting. I'd move to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. We're adjourned.